Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, more news on the big two in the Valley, Suns stars for maybe not super long. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker telling us a lot about where this offseason is headed. Who wants KD? And the Suns definitely want Book. We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Wednesday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. An extension on its way for Devin Booker. And a look at a cautionary tale for when that time comes. But first, joining me as always from the wonderful West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. We got some KD news to talk about. How are we feeling, Ben Garcia?
I was just telling you that it feels like everything's just going to come out through a really slow trickle. And it feels like you and I, like if we were just like a playoff team, this would be really big news. But given the fact that we've had other big news recently with like the firing Mike Budenholzer, yeah, the Kevin Durant Suitors stuff, but like a Book extension would be big news for any other team. And this is just like the little stuff for us that we'll continue to dive into.
So nice if it was like the extension that, AD and LeBron got him in 2020 after the title. And those extensions are a little nicer to talk about. This one's like a please don't leave, but it's how it goes. All right, let's get to the Kevin Durant Suitors. That is the big news. We'll spend the majority of the show talking about Book later, but so John Gambadoro locally on the radio at the start of their show today listed 4 teams that we already knew of, but I think it's more about the fact that that might be the extent of the list that might be the big information here, Ben, because Gambo said Houston, Minnesota, New York, and San Antonio. So not in there, Dallas, not in there, Miami, and yet still like a pretty wide range of types of teams, if that makes sense. I've kind of been splitting up these suitors into more rebuild packages versus reset packages, player heavy versus pick heavy, or how young are the players. There's a little way to kind of sort it like that, and this runs the full gamut of all the different types of packages the Suns could be looking at. So what did you think when you saw those 4 teams pop up? Or heard them, I guess.
Well, combining it with the Brian Windhorst article saying that the Timberwolves were the most aggressive for Kevin Durant shocked me like a little bit in terms of that, because we saw Golden State, we saw the Timberwolves, but the Suns ultimately were the closest to the Golden State one. So how really aggressive were the Timberwolves, which could be a foreshadowing of what the bidding could look like for Kevin Durant, God forbid. But I think the one that was most surprising me was the San Antonio Spurs, because that's a team that, yes, Wemby and Kevin Durant would work together. I think Kevin Durant and De'Aaron Fox should work seamlessly together. A lot of what De'Aaron Fox does, though, does mean he has to have the ball in his hand, and I don't think you want to take that away from KD. I thought the most surprising was the San Antonio Spurs, but they have some very interesting pieces. I don't know if you're going to get Castle. I don't know if you're even going to get Keldon Johnson. And the money does have to make sense, but those are my first 2 reactions. One, the Minnesota Timberwolves being that aggressive, and the Suns still wanted the Warriors package, potentially more, which worries me. And then, of course, the fact that San Antonio Spurs were there. That was a little surprising to me. Why are you ready to go all in already? So that was my reaction. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know if it's headphone switch. We're back. Here is my thought on that. Okay, so I agree with everything you said. The Minnesota part has always been weird, because if you listen or you even just think critically yourself, they are over the second apron also. So like the idea that they were close is crazy because the Suns literally could not have executed a trade with them. Neither team could have gone over the salary that they were sending out, which means you literally can't do a trade. So that part, and they would have had to have a third team. Until I hear like where Julius Randle was going or something like that in the deal, I don't even believe the Timberwolves thing about February. But I totally believe that they could be interested in June or July. I mean, sure. We'll have to see how they perform in the postseason. They obviously avoided the play-in, which is good. But the other part, and I got to just get this on the record now, I'm nervous that the Knicks are on this list because to me, it would be pretty bad for the Suns if we get to a point where that becomes one of the top teams on a potential list that is decreed by Kevin Durant. Because they don't have enough to give. We've gone through that. And I know Knicks fans were kind of laughing in the comments of that video. I always love, how do these random fan bases find our videos? I'm like,
I don't know.
Why is a Knicks fan paying a single ounce of attention to this feed? They always do, though. And they're like,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't know why they do that.
They're like, yeah, it's hilarious you think the Knicks would be the team giving up a pick with Cat, blah, blah, blah. The point of that wasn't anything of that. It really was that I just don't think there's a trade there. And so to me, if it's the Knicks, I would start to worry because then you're talking about the Suns not maybe getting the maximum that they possibly could. We could be headed toward that pathway. I don't know. The last thing to note before I throw it back your way to tell me what where you're thinking this might be headed is Rich Kleiman is apparently flying to Phoenix this week, KD's manager, to work on this together. It's a little surprising that that's like right now. I thought that was interesting because the trade's not going to happen in April. That's not how really things go. So,
well, it also can't.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So, it's not even going to be like talked about right now. That was a little interesting to me. Just genuinely. But what do you think? It's only those 4 teams? That's kind of the other part of this.
I do think it's only those 4 teams because Gambo reported it, which leads me to believe he's getting stuff from the Suns camp, Kevin Durant's camp, and whatever other teams, kind of touched upon across, the NBA landscape. But for me, it's like, God, I'm so happy you brought that part up, and shame on me for missing it. I don't want anything to do with the Knicks package. You and I have talked about the Knicks package, which you're absolutely right. Why the hell were the Knicks even watching our show when that had happened? But
we just make great content. I guess they can't get enough of it.
And I'm happy that this is being done in the 8-minute mark because this is where people watch it. We're the 23-minute mark. Sometimes people tend to tail off. I don't want anything to do with Karl-Anthony Towns' contract or him on this team. We already had a player, and Karl-Anthony Towns has not been the most healthiest player. He's not necessarily an injury-prone player, but he hasn't been the healthiest player when it comes to staying on the court. And he doesn't play a lick of defense. Talking to our buddy over at Locked On Knicks, and he was telling me the other day, and he was like, Cat tries on defense, and it's even that much more pathetic because he can't figure it out because he's so bad at it still. So where I don't want another guy
on defense is how I would put it. Like he was fine in Minnesota.
Well, there's also Rudy Gobert there. When you have Rudy Gobert there as your starting center, who's a really good center, especially defensively, that does help. And he wasn't playing center. I don't want Cat here in any circumstance. I don't want that contract. I don't want those problems. I don't want another guy that doesn't play a lick of defense.
Yeah, and we talked about the other options there, which would be
it's not great.
OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges. Like it's just not. Those guys are already in their primes, and they're already players who are being paid like high-level role players, $30-40 million. Like that's locking in that player as needing to perform like the second or third best player alongside Devin Booker on whatever the next kind of version of this team is going to be. I'm just not in a hurry to lock that type of thing in with guys that are at their ceilings for all intents and purposes. So anyway, I think part of, to answer my own question from a minute ago too, like I do buy that for now this might be the list. I know I'm saying for now, but because Miami and Dallas would be 2 other teams, like I said, but their seasons are already decided, basically. I mean, they're in the play-in, but they're in the 9-10 games. It would take a miracle to get to the playoffs, and it would be a quick painless exit once it happens. So they're not waiting to see what's going to happen in the postseason is my point, right? So it's not like, well, if the Mavs this or that, or hey, watch out, if Miami flames out. I mean, they've already had disappointing seasons. So I think if they were going to be interested, we would know it already.
If you're a Suns fan, this is going to be really hard, but you need to be a Lakers fan. Because if I'm just, preemptively thinking of where Kevin Durant could go out of those 4 teams, Minnesota keeps on rearing its head in these discussions. I think he's just going to want to go play with Anthony Edwards, and it feels like KD's very much a relationships guy. With those 4 teams, the only one that makes sense because of a relationship status would be the Minnesota Timberwolves. And if you want to make the Timberwolves desperate enough to get Kevin Durant, you need to hope that they lose and lose kind of quickly to where they feel like they have to make changes swiftly to this team to help get them back to a competing status, whatever that looks like. So, I mean, as of right now, the Knicks don't make a lot of sense. The Spurs are very interesting. It just continues to go back to Houston and the Timberwolves for now. But it does feel like that's really the only one that kind of makes sense. I still worry about the Rockets really wanting Kevin Durant. I just don't know if it makes them a contender with him right away. I don't know if they'd want to give up too much to make that happen, unless they feel like they can get him for cheap.
Exactly. All right.
Which is
to
so
Devin
worrisome.
Booker as some more news from the ESPN article from Brian Windhorst that Ben referenced a moment ago told us that the Suns do, in fact, expect to make an offer to Devin Booker this offseason. We'll break down what that means next. First, today's show is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about it. When was the last time you had a service emergency? Well, if the first person didn't answer, did you wait around? No. You moved on to the next place to call, or you took matters into your own hands. But that's why, if you're a business, you need Open Phone. It's the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications all through an app on your phone or computer. Told you this story multiple times already. My little sister's working at NAU. She's having to *67 her number because the university that she works for didn't actually give her a phone or a phone service or anything like this. She doesn't want her number getting out there and having business conducted over her personal cell phone as a kid. Why didn't they go with Open Phone? Get 20% off your first 6 months when you try it out at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you're switching from another service, Open Phone will even port that existing number over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's episode also brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV 4K stick. Did you know that your Fire TV can also be an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K device, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and beyond as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. In addition, with 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscription services. Head to amazon.com/FireTVLockedOn to get started. That's amazon.com/FireTVLockedOn. Of course, all one word. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and the Fire TV Cube. All right, Ben, let's keep the show rolling here. We got more news from Brian Windhorst as it pertains to Devin Booker, who we know was eligible for an extension of 2 years, $149.8 million, which just seeing that number continues to be absolutely wild in the NBA. Guys making $75 million a season. I remember not too long ago when $75 million a year was like close to the max, or a total was some of the maxes that we were seeing. And now it's per season for the best players in the league. The Suns are going to expected to offer him that contract, according to Windy. This is news just because it's concrete information. But the bigger question is whether Book accepts it, right? That's the question. It's not so much. I mean, why would you not offer it to him?
Yeah, of course. Why would you not offer it to him? I'm going to ask the obvious question, and I'm going to let you answer and let you talk to me like I'm a 4-year-old so we can break it down really quickly. Why wouldn't Devin Booker accept that contract offer?
Well, I mean, so the team's offering it because let's lay this out actually a little bit more, because the Sun, what his current contract is, because I should start there. What even is this extension? So as of right now, Book is under contract for the next 3 seasons after this one that just ended. He is under contract through 2028. But because once you get to a certain point in your career and you're, if you're on the same team for long enough and whatever, you are constantly eligible to be extended. I mean, most players in the NBA technically can sign extensions. They just don't, because what's the point? But when you're as good as Book, that money is really, really high. I mean, you're talking about the first year of this contract would be somewhere in the realm of 70, 75 million. That'd be a $9 million plus increase on the amount of money that he's set to make in that 2028 season. So the Suns are going to offer it to him because they're in a panic mode right now, and they want to make sure that they have absolutely every possible, ounce of leverage or control over their best player, their franchise cornerstone, as they possibly can. Now, why would Booker say no to it? Because most likely he could get that next summer. He could get that. I'm not saying we're headed here. It's a long way away. But if he hit free agency in 2028, he would get a number similar to that, most likely, assuming that he's healthy and everything else. Now, we could debate that, of course, but that's probably how he feels as a confident guy. So it's the same reason Durant declined it last year, right? It's just there's no rush when you have that security to necessarily lock yourself in on something before you have to.
So I'm going to act like I'm not super confused here, but only the Suns can offer him that $75 million a year, though.
Well, when he hits free agency, I mean, who knows what things would look like at that point. I don't know what the cap's going to be. I don't know.
That is true. I
don't know what the rules are going to be about contracts at that point. But, he could get a pretty decent portion of it probably then, and definitely could get more than 150 million total if we just want to look at the total money, right? So,
well, that's true as well, but he would keep on getting that from the Suns anyways. But I mean, in terms of
exactly,
he'll still
those
make that money in
paths.
extension anyways.
You're always going to get the most by staying on your team, but we've also seen guys change teams and they end up being net pretty close to even. So I think that would be his thinking. And why I'm already here locked in for 3 seasons. Why make it 5 when I don't really have to?
Well, forget about if we think Booker will accept it or not. I absolutely think he will. He's shown nothing but loyalty to the Phoenix Suns for a really long time. I think more so, does this really change? Like, say he takes that deal. Outside of this year, does that really change him potentially getting moved next year? That's where my confusion comes from. It's like, if he wants to be moved next year, the Suns could still he'd be 29 years old. The Suns could still get massive haul for him still. And move him.
Here's why I think these things to me, when it's an extension and it's not a new contract, to me, it's symbolic more than anything. So I would expect you to be taking the other side because you were the one advocating that his comments on Friday night were an attempt to get some leverage over ownership. This isn't a way to get leverage over ownership, right? This is a way to say, I'm not going to sign this extension right now until I see the types of moves that I think we need to make, right? That's what it would be. And so if you're of the mind that Book is kind of putting a little bit of pressure here on this team for the first time really ever, then you would look at it and say, why would he give over his control of his future sooner than he has to? Yeah, it would be a sign of goodwill, but he's not really in the business of goodwill right now. He's in the business of let's get this you-know-what back on track.
Well, I would argue he's kind of in the business of both right now because he's spoken so highly outside of the comments that I do believe you could have taken either this way or the other way, whether good or bad. But then there it is. That's the breaking down point to where The Suns, I don't think, are on the clock in terms of Devin Booker's patience here, because even when I said his comments last week, I do still think he'll be here next year. I think that more happens next year. So that would be the first step of Booker potentially not taking this extension. I mean, it's a good point, man. It's a good point. This is all kind of stuff I was thinking about earlier today, where would he take that extension? Would he not take the extension? I would probably lean towards he would take it, because we live in an NBA now where, especially a guy like Booker, who's been on this team for so long, 10 years now at this point, a decade plus fairly soon here, where I do believe they will feel like, because he's been so loyal to them, they will trade him and honor that when he says, trade me. So I think it'll be goodwill on both sides.
So that's the other thing, though, when you talk about a trade, and I know nobody necessarily wants to hear this, but hey, this is going to be a hard summer.
It's the reality. Yeah.
The other reason on the Suns side that this would be important to get done is it makes him supremely more valuable when and if they ever had to trade him. That's what happened with Brooklyn with KD, right? He demanded a trade. He asked for a trade, whatever word you want to use, before his extension had ever kicked in, which, you can make fun of or whatever. But like the thing that matters about that is you were getting 4 years of control. And that's why you're able to get what you got in Bridges, Johnson, the picks, all that stuff. And it's why when you talk about players like KD this summer, or Jimmy Butler telling one team, I'll only extend with you, that just raises the value. You're getting X number of years from a player instead of one. And so if you're going to a team, let's say next offseason, if worse comes to worse and Book asks out, if he has already signed this extension now, at that point in time, it would be 4 years of Devin Booker. If he doesn't sign this extension, it will be 2. That's a very big difference. So, that's another
2
reason.
years. If he's getting, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. At that point, I don't think 2 years is like too much to scoff at when it comes to the control of Devin Booker, because
but it's
at
less
that point,
than 4. That's my point.
It is true. 100%.
It's 100%
wrong.
It could be.
This contract, if you put him into the extension, would put him through his age 33 season. The thing that I would worry about, just moving away from the trade aspect, give everyone a second to, debrief from that, is the salary cap is going to continue to go up, right?
Yeah.
So he could take time, because he's got 4 years left, 3 years left on this deal now. He could wait till it continues to go up and then just make more money later. It doesn't mean exactly that if he doesn't take this extension, which you mentioned a second ago, but I just want to point it out there. It doesn't mean that he's putting the Suns on the clock. It could also mean he's just waiting for the cap to continue to go up and get that extension again next year. It's not like he's going to be worth anything less unless he tears an ACL or blows out an Achilles.
Yeah, but the result of him not taking it this summer symbolically would be pressure.
True. No argument there. I would absolutely agree with you.
That's the fine line, and like it's going to matter how the communication is around this and everything else along the way. But the other, I think, kind of pathway that this can take, there's the trade, which is worst case scenario. There's he signs it and they figure it out, and they're back to the top of the West in 2 years or whatever. There's also this kind of in between, and some other players kind of serve as a example of what that can look like. We'll dive into one in particular next. First, today's show is brought to you by Skims. When we found out Skims was making underwear for men here on the Locked On Podcast Network, well, we were intrigued. We've heard about it before, seen it online, but they do stuff for men as well. Well, it does live up to the hype, I gotta say. If you have had struggles with fit or comfort or just like a style that you like, Skims is the place for you. They offer something for everybody, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. They have active workout type gear. They have more just kind of soft everyday stuff. They have different fits, different colors, whatever you might like. Whether you're working out or just running errands, they're the most comfortable and reliable underwear you'll ever own. And that lightweight material feels almost like you're wearing nothing at all. So shop Skims Men's at skims.com/LockedOnNBA and Skims stores. Let them know we sent you by selecting podcast in the survey after you make your purchase and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. All right, let's close it out, Ben. So here's I actually randomly got asked to do Portland radio this morning. I don't know how they found me, but they wanted to talk about the Chauncey Billups rumors.
Did you go on Portland radio today?
Yeah, 8:30 a.m. morning drive.
Listen, man, you
Portland
want
radio.
I'm starting to get a little jealous here. I mean, you're doing Portland radio. You did 12 News yesterday. And here we are. I just get to talk with you whenever. Wow, how special I am. That's pretty cool.
You don't have to be jealous of anything. You got me right now. So it just was random that they asked me, but I already had this idea because we had been talking about doing it, where this middle ground that can kind of happen, right? With these super max stars who stick around through one era of a team, and sometimes it ends up in a no man's land. And that's what happened to Damian Lillard, where they make the conference finals, Yusuf Nurkic, CJ McCollum, on down the line, and then they kind of start to recycle things. They take Dame has the ab injury one year, they get a high pick. He, isn't quite himself, whatever. And then before long, he eventually asked out anyway. And you just kind of look back at that intermediate period between the conference finals appearance and that trade in 2023, and it's like, what did that really accomplish him, right? And so I'm not trying to jump the gun, but it's definitely something the Suns need to be mindful about with how they handle things this summer, to not let that happen.
I was trying to look up the whole Damian Lillard side of things when he was with the Portland Trailblazers. I was just trying to compare the statistics with it all, whether the Damian Lillard side, the Devin Booker side, like how similar is it even before then to where it is now? So I find it all incredibly intriguing, man, because just even away from is it kind of the same pass with two different teams? I think more so it's like, oh my God, Devin Booker's career arc is starting to look like insanely close to what Damian Lillard was. So, I mean, I would ask you, do you think Booker sees Damian Lillard's former, like the way he went through before with the Portland Trailblazers and how it ended and how he tried to be loyal and how he tried to be all these things to Portland? Like, do you think he sees that now, that it could end the same way for him? Because that's what I worry about when you at first mentioned it.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. And there's other examples, right? Like, but I think Dame is the best one. You could go
Dame's
Beal,
the best one.
Beal's not as good, and the Wizards are the Wizards. Even Giannis right now, obviously he's kind of crossed paths with Dame, and he's better than any of the guys we're talking about. He's an all-timer, but he's kind of in that period where it's like, is Giannis really ever going to get back to contention with what Milwaukee's situation is like? You do wonder that, even though they're in a better situation than the Suns. But I don't know if he looks at Dame's. I would say the things that make it different, like just to get that out of the way, like the Suns front office is, or I guess I should say, the Suns ownership and like market situation are just better, right? Blazers are not a destination franchise. They also, in the middle of all of that, their owner died, right? So like that whole changeover where it's now the wife running things, and people thought they were going to put the team up for sale and then they never did. That whole thing was also going on where it made things murky, and they end up having to hire like the team lawyer or whatever Joe Cronin was to be the GM. So like there were some extenuating circumstances, but I think it's just the thing that I come back to with this is, if you're making the decision right now to get rid of star number 2, Kevin Durant, every move this summer has to be made with the intention of getting the next star number 2 back. Like everything has to be with that in mind. Is that a draft pick you think you're going to hit on? Is that a pathway to getting cap space at some point in time? Is that getting assets to be maybe like a volume of assets to be able to make a trade for that star player? It all has to come back to, because Portland got what? Jeremy Grant, That was the best they could do during this
Yeah.
period of time for Dame. Jeremy Grant, he's like the 5th best player on a championship team, and he was masquerading as the co-star. You can't run into that problem.
Well, let me ask you this, man. With the assets that the Suns have, which isn't much, even if you get Katie, like this is where I come back to when people give the argument of like trade Devin Booker. And I got to be honest with you, over the last couple of weeks, I've started to grow a little accustomed to just hearing people out a little bit. When are the Suns ever going to have the weaponry to go out and go get him a real second star or a first star, like a player better than Devin Booker? It would have to take, and it has happened before, a player saying, I want to go to Phoenix and only Phoenix. It happened with Bradley Beal and it happened with Kevin Durant. But
Or
how likely is that?
developing somebody outside of the top 5 in the draft. Can Ryan Dunn, or if they get their pick back from the Rockets this year, or Jaden McDaniels, or Jabari Smith, or fill in the blank. Like, can those guys turn into a higher ceiling than we thought? That would be the other path.
When is the expiration on that, do you think? Both for the Suns and for Devin Booker. Do you ever, like, I don't know if the Suns would ever willingly just
I
trade
think
him.
if things aren't looking up in terms of players developing, or you hit on a trade here and there and the coach works out, like if we're feeling uneasy at all next summer, it's absolutely going to be a conversation. Like, they have 1 year to at least get on the right path. They're not going to be anybody's pick to win the title in 2026, but I mean, what do you think? What I just said, like, I think to me it would be, hey, Ryan Dunn takes a step forward, Jaden McDaniels or whatever it ends up being. Like, that guy looks good. They have some maybe picks. Maybe they get a pick for Grayson Allen, or they draft somebody at 29 this year and he at least looks like he's a dude. Like, enough of these moves have to go right. Yeah, I don't know what they are yet, so I can't be specific. But
agreed. But how plausible is that to happen? Because at some point, if you're Booker, you have to look around and say, listen, Grant ain't going to do it for me. And neither, well, they had already traded CJ McCollum at that point, but McCollum or Grant or whoever it is, Nurkic at one point, it's like, that's not cutting it for me. And I don't think the Suns will ever trade Devin Booker without having the conversations with him prior to this. And if Devin Booker wants to be here forever, he'll probably be here forever. But it does feel like the timeline is you got 2 years. And the first year better look pretty damn good. And the second year needs to give you a lead on another star or superstar player to come join forces with Booker. But that's the one thing that I believe fans that don't want to trade Devin Booker, but are advocating to trade Devin Booker, is that right there. I don't know if they're ever going to have the supplies that they need to go out and surround him with talent. Jaden McDaniels is great. Ryan Dunn is great. And all these guys could take the next step. But that's what I worry about. And I wonder if Devin Booker, once you had mentioned it, looks at the Damian Lillard arc and wonders how far he can actually go.
100%. That's
it's just, when you sent that to me today, man, I meant to have the statistics up on my phone when I had it, but I guess it went past it, but, or I just got out of it on accident, but it's a really good conversation. The much better comp to Devin Booker's career was never Kobe Bryant. It's very similar to Damian Lillard. It's not even like similar to like Dwayne Wade. I think player took his team far.
Or something, right? Like there's some of those examples where guys just remained like.
Dirk was just better. Dirk was just a lot better.
So were Kobe and Wade, right? Like,
well, that's why I say not Kobe Wade. Like Lillard makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. What I was going to say about Dirk is, he's better. He won the title. So did all those other guys. It's a lot easier to stick it out. And the problem that I think you run into, like, we just have to be honest, and you and I just were, Book's not as good as those guys. He just isn't. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. He can be a championship caliber top player. We know that. He's done it already. But he's not that good. He's not a surefire Hall of Famer when he's 28, the way that those guys already were minted. And so that's another comp for Dame. Dame wasn't ever, winning MVPs or finals MVPs or things like that. He's a little bit of a tick down, and that's where you do start to run into some of that trouble. So it's at least there to tuck away as we think about the rest of the offseason. That'll wrap us up, I should say. Hit follow or subscribe if you have not already. Become an everydayer. As Ben said, a slow trickle of news is guaranteed here in the Valley all summer, so keep it right here, and we'll talk to you next time.